I really can't believe you still don't get it. Her voice rang out like a glass door slamming shut in the middle of winter, cold and deliberate. Rebecca Sterling, the newly promoted creative director, leaned back in her glossy black leather chair like she was presiding over a tribunal, not dismissing the man who had carried the company through 3 budget crises. The South Haven building needs a leader with a sharper, more modern vision. I need someone whose voice inspires complete client confidence, Brandon, not someone like you. I said nothing, but my eyes didn't move from the big screen behind her. My design was being projected like the triumph of a whole team, except I wasn't mentioned once. The conference room glass reflected my posture off to the side, not defeated, but unmistakably pushed out. That building saved the company nearly $400,000 by optimizing solar energy systems and adapting materials to the regional climate, I said slowly, each word scraping against the cold tabletop. Who proposed that solution a month ahead of deadline? Rebecca shrugged, not bothering to hide her disdain. You know the truth. I'm the one who presented it to the board. Brandon, your job is to support me, not compete. I nodded, not in agreement, but because I finally saw the playbook. I used to think people like her only existed in cliché office dramas. I was wrong. They walk among us. And they're more dangerous when they have power. I'll be gone by Friday, I said, my voice so flat she stopped tapping her pen. But Monday might be interesting. Rebecca raised an eyebrow, her smile slicing across her face like a paper cut. Cryptic remarks, exactly why you don't fit here. I hope you pack up quickly. She turned her chair toward the panoramic windows of the 17th floor, as if New York City was waiting for her next executive decision. I walked out without another word. As I passed the hallway, a few former coworkers glanced at me, then quickly looked away, like eye contact might make them collateral damage. I didn't blame them. Everyone knew Rebecca neither forgave nor forgot. I, Brandon Moore, 47, former lead architect at Cloverfield Urban Design, had just been cut out of the very projects I built. I walked slowly past the long hallway lined with framed photos of key developments. The Echelon building, with its glass and stone facade designed for cold climates. The Logan Center, known for its acoustic bamboo domes. Both had Rebecca's name etched beneath them. I had stood in front of those sketches past midnight, adjusting every curve, every steel beam, while she was busy snapping photos of her martini glass for Instagram. My phone buzzed, a text from Miles, the retired chief engineer. You good? Heard she made her move. I didn't respond, just tightened my grip on the strap and kept walking. In my bag was an external hard drive containing everything: early sketches, internal emails, detailed notes, the proof I'd quietly compiled over the last 6 months. I wasn't naive. Rebecca thought showing me the door was the end. She forgot one thing. Some blueprints can't be erased, and some people, quiet as they are, know exactly when to bring them to light. All I had to do was stay silent until Monday. The truth would do the rest. Back when I started at Cloverfield, I truly believed it would be the place I'd finish out my career. I was 39, fresh off a Sustainable Design Award for a residential district in Boulder. Cloverfield sent a letter from New York offering a lead role with near-complete creative freedom, an unheard-of luxury in this field. I didn't hesitate. For the first 3 years, I gave everything. The Heritage Library Project, a public space in Queens powered by clean energy, was my pride. I designed its daylighting system and stormwater reuse model myself. During a meeting with the city council, then CEO Lester Kane patted my back in front of the entire room and said, "Brandon is why this project exists." In that moment, I believed I was exactly where I belonged. Then Rebecca arrived. She joined Cloverfield at 33, resume polished, demeanor theatrical. At first I was impressed. She listened, dropped by to discuss sustainability theory, called me Bran whenever she needed help polishing a presentation, and showered me with compliments like, "You see things no one else in the room even notices." I mistook it for genuine recognition. A year later, I started noticing. In client meetings, Rebecca would cut me off, then repackage my statements as the team's direction, A landscape concept I emailed internally showed up untouched, in a slideshow she led. I thought about confronting her but held back, wondering if maybe I was just being sensitive. Maybe collaboration demanded flexibility. It didn't. When we signed the Longmeadow Park renovation, I drafted the proposal, surveyed the land, and developed the layered lighting structure woven through tree canopies to reduce nighttime power use. That sketch sat on my table until 3 a.m. in my tiny Astoria apartment. At the public unveiling, only one name appeared on the banner. Rebecca Sterling, lead designer. When I questioned her, she scoffed. "You know how to present beautifully, but teamwork is about brand unity. We're a collective." She repeated that line every time I found a piece of my work or an entire build labeled under her name with zero warning. Under Rebecca, Cloverfield turned into a slick operation. Private dinners with key clients, speaking spots at Seattle summits she insisted on attending, even when she wasn't part of the topic. She curated her image flawlessly for the executive board, most of whom were too busy to ask who actually stayed up late tweaking renderings. When I was assigned to lead the Sky Haven Complex, an affordable housing development in the Bronx, Rebecca personally requested to support in a strategic capacity. She skipped the site visit, never signed off on sketches, but appeared at every press event as director of vision. Reporters began branding her the face of New York's sustainable design scene. My name was never mentioned. I wasn't one to argue. But I began archiving every email, every version of every file, sometimes uploading them to a private account just in case. What woke me wasn't frustration. It was the look of pity from a new junior named Eric, who asked me after a meeting, "Didn't you show me that design last week? Why is it being pitched as Sterling's vision today?" I didn't answer. Just nodded, reopened my design software, and kept building the work I loved, knowing someone else was waiting to sign their name over mine. But I also knew some blueprints aren't meant to stay silent. Rebecca never thought I'd speak up. What she didn't count on was this: no one stays silent forever, when what's stolen isn't just their job, but their name. The black external drive I carried wasn't for music or photos. It held over 3 years of data. Original drawings, CAD files with embedded metadata, email chains, notes, even covert audio clips from project meetings where Rebecca would temporarily speak for me during pitches. I started gathering evidence the moment she requested all Columbia Art Center files be migrated to her machine for easier management. A week later, the slides presented matched my renderings. Except this time, they bore the tag, "Concept by R. Sterling." Not a single note credited the design team. Not one line mentioned the 2-month material analysis I ran for the energy grid. She manipulated process and memory alike. When I quietly raised a question during a technical meeting, Rebecca smirked. "I assumed that was just your draft. I simply built it out. When did leaving a layout 100% intact qualify as building it out?" The room said nothing. Some avoided eye contact. Others nodded with cautious approval, afraid of landing on her bad side. I didn't react. There was no point in reacting without anything solid in hand. Getting angry would only make others think I couldn't manage my emotions. Rebecca was an expert at turning any pushback into proof that I was unprofessional. I needed a sharper weapon. From that day forward, every time I finished a design, I saved it into an encrypted folder, then backed it up to a portable hard drive. Both the metadata and edit timestamps were recorded clearly. Whenever there was an important meeting, I activated the voice recorder on my phone to capture every word, especially the moments when Rebecca assigned me to draft layouts, only to send out final presentations with her name on them. She even built an entire narrative around a so-called collaborative creative process to justify inserting her name into every design. In a company-wide email, she wrote, "No one creates greatness alone. Brandon is an inspiring collaborator who helps me bring ideas to life." At first glance, it sounded like praise, but in truth, she was claiming the core concept as hers while reducing me to a technical assistant. One March afternoon, I received an anonymous message through our internal app. "Watch out, they're restructuring the main design team. You're not listed." The message came from an unverified account, but I had a hunch it was from Emily, the intern who worked closely with me on the Hudson Pier project. She once messaged me privately, asking why what she saw in my sketch looked nothing like the version Rebecca submitted to the board. I reopened the folder, labeled 2023 underscore Hudson underscore Pier underscore Orridge. It contained a walkway design made of glass, meant to channel natural light according to seasonal cycles, an idea inspired by Finnish architecture. In Rebecca's final submission, that section had been replaced with a standard concrete path, simpler but still echoing the surface aesthetic I had drawn. That evening I stayed at the office past 9 p.m. Only the lights near my desk and the far meeting room were still on. In an email to myself, I attached the full project files along with detailed notes and original timestamps. I also screenshot every chat with Emily and each group report where my name was removed from the concept development section and reassigned under technical support. The turning point came when Rebecca summoned me to her office for a mid-cycle performance review. Her tone was gentle, but every word felt pre-selectioned for legal documentation. "I've heard some feedback that you've been a bit rigid when executing ideas," she said, while skimming a pre-printed report. "We need people who can work with the bigger picture in mind." I offered a thin smile. "By bigger picture, you mean the kind where someone else erases your work and puts their name on it?" She didn't flinch, just exhaled softly and replied, "Brandon, I think you should be careful with your attitude. The company doesn't tolerate disruptive behavior." That wasn't a warning. It was the foundation for pushing me out. I had no more doubts. Rebecca wasn't just claiming credit. She was clearing the way to eliminate me entirely. I slipped the small USB drive back into the inner pocket of my blazer. It held everything I'd need to expose her, if it came to that. But not yet. I needed the right time and the right place. There would only be one chance. When it came, no one would be able to rewrite the story. I was about to leave the office when the phone rang, an internal call from the front desk. "Brandon, there's someone from Eaton and Blake waiting for you in the lobby," Marianne said, hesitating. "He says he had an appointment, but it's not on the schedule." I'd never worked directly with Eaton and Blake, a competing design firm headquartered in Chicago that had recently opened a branch in Manhattan. Them showing up now couldn't be random. "I'll head down," I said, tucking the hard drive into my laptop bag before stepping out. The man waiting in the lobby had the kind of presence that shifted the atmosphere in any room. Gray cashmere coat, tall, lean frame, unmistakable confidence. He walked up and extended a hand. "Brandon Moore? A pleasure to meet you. I'm Franklin Dade, Northeast Regional Director at Eaton and Blake." "I'm afraid I don't recall us having an appointment," I replied carefully, shaking his hand without smiling. "It's urgent. It concerns the West River Eco Complex," he said, lowering his voice. "Specifically the preliminary designs you submitted." My face went rigid. "I haven't submitted any designs to your firm." Franklin frowned. "Then something's off. Last week, we received preliminary schematics from Cloverfield under Rebecca Sterling's name, but she introduced the main concept as yours. She referenced a prior discussion, an informal meeting between you and one of our consultants." My palms turned cold. I had never had such a meeting. West River? I had sketched out a few personal ideas related to revitalizing the derelict harbor on Manhattan's west side, but they were private drafts, never approved, never shared. Except for one printout I once pinned to my mood board at my desk. "May I see the design you're referring to?" I asked. Franklin opened his iPad and handed it to me. On the screen was a 3D rendering of interconnected floating gardens, linked by glass-covered wooden bridges, with an underground rainwater system. Every line, every proportion, every lighting structure, they were mine. But they'd been subtly modified, stamped with Cloverfield's logo and Rebecca's name in the lower corner. "I never sent these to anyone, and I've never spoken to anyone from Eaton and Blake," I said, eyes locked on the screen. "These are private drafts, never approved or published. Who sent them to you?" "We received them via email from Rebecca. She said you had left the company but wanted to stay involved as an outside consultant," Franklin said quietly but firmly. "We found it strange that all follow-ups were delayed by her, so I decided to speak with you directly." Rebecca had stolen my draft, faked a meeting, and used my name to open doors with a competitor, while simultaneously clearing a path to push me out of Cloverfield. Every piece was starting to fall into place. The rushed termination, the vague underperformance reports, the emails nudging me to resign for the sake of optics. Franklin, I said, my voice steady now, do those files contain metadata? Yes, every file is time-stamped and system-logged. Good. I'd like copies of everything, including the email thread, sender details, and timestamps. He studied me for a second, then nodded. I'll send it over tonight, but one more thing, he added, lowering his voice further. Eaton and Blake is reconsidering the partnership. We need the real author behind those ideas, and a convincing explanation. I gave a small nod. You'll have it, but I need you to keep this between us for 3 days. On the way back to the office, I walked past the hallway where they displayed project renderings, including West River, now rebranded as Sterling Eco Complex. No one looked at me, but I saw everything. Rebecca hadn't just taken my work, she tried to sell my name, my ethics, and my silence. What she didn't realize was that Franklin had unknowingly unlocked the very door she thought was sealed shut. The evidence was in hand. The only question now was not if I'd reveal it, but when the fallout would make everyone rise from their seats. By Wednesday afternoon, just after my meeting with Franklin Dade, I returned to the office. The red light on my desk phone blinked relentlessly. 3 missed calls and an internal message from HR. Brandon, please report to the conference room on the 19th floor. Urgent. The 19th floor never hosted meetings that ended in applause. As the glass doors slid open, I saw Rebecca already seated, her hand resting lightly on a beige folder. Beside her sat Alan Greaves, the interim CEO, following Lester's retirement, a man who rarely noticed anything that didn't affect Cloverfield's stock value. At the far end of the table was Marissa from legal, posture stiff, expression unreadable. No one offered me a seat. I pulled out a chair myself. Brandon, Alan began, we need to clarify some concerns before making a final decision. There's evidence suggesting you shared internal designs with Eaton and Blake. I let out a dry laugh. Evidence? You mean the emails Rebecca sent using my name? Marissa flipped open a thick folder and slid it toward me. We received 3 emails sent from your Cloverfield account to external recipients with attached West River design files and concept notes. I looked at the printout, address, timestamp, attachments. It all seemed legitimate except for one thing. I had never sent any emails during that time frame. I was in Vermont on a weekend trip when this so-called evidence was created. My account was accessed without permission, I said calmly. I have proof that I wasn't even in the office when those emails were sent. Rebecca feigned surprise. Are you accusing me of faking your emails? Brandon, I understand you're upset about being taken off the project, but don't deflect like this. I didn't answer her. Instead, I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the photo of my hotel receipt from Edge Hill Inn in Burlington with a check-in timestamp that matched exactly when the emails had supposedly been sent. I can provide the original receipt, GPS data from my phone, and hotel security footage if needed, I said, looking straight at Alan. And I also have the original West River design files, complete with metadata, showing I never once shared them by email. Alan remained expressionless, fingers interlocked in front of him. This is about the company's reputation, Brandon. We've received feedback from Eaton and Blake that you misrepresented yourself as a consultant on Cloverfield's behalf. I've never met with or sent anything to them. The only person who did was Rebecca, and they can confirm that. Rebecca jumped in. I simply introduced the concept as part of our team's portfolio, nothing confidential, just content that had already been reviewed internally. Then how do you explain my termination midweek, when just 2 days ago, Alan told me I was being reassigned to lead the Red Hill Industrial Complex project? No one responded. Marissa placed another stack of papers on the table, a formal termination letter. Brandon Moore, per Clause 8B of your employment contract, we're ending your engagement, effective immediately. You'll receive a severance package equal to 2 months' salary, along with a standard reference letter. My eyes locked onto the bolded line. Employee voluntarily accepts termination due to violation of intellectual property policy. I looked up and met Rebecca's gaze, her face composed, but something in her eyes betrayed a flicker of caution. There's no investigation? I asked, my tone low. No cross-examination, no system check, no network data review. Alan waved a hand. For the company's sake, we'd prefer not to drag this out. Let's consider this an amicable exit. I stood, picked up the contract, folded it neatly. This company may fear scandal, I said, but I don't. Rebecca opened her mouth, but I had already left the room. As the elevator doors closed, I pulled out my phone and sent one message. Ready? It starts tomorrow morning. Franklin replied within 3 seconds. We've confirmed the metadata. They're about to learn who really authored the idea. Back at my desk, 2 HR staff were already waiting. I didn't speak to them. I opened my drawer, grabbed the hard drive, an old family photo, and a scale model of the Columbia Art Center I had handcrafted over 3 nights. That was all 8 years amounted to. I didn't go back to the 19th floor. I walked straight out of the building, feeling the sunlight quietly peel away everything fake behind the polished glass. Rebecca thought she had closed a chapter. She didn't realize she'd just cracked the foundation beneath the entire structure. That night, while backing up my evidence to a private server, a strange email landed in my inbox. West River Files, Internal Phase 3 Proposal, Confidential. The sender's address was gibberish, not from any Cloverfield domain. The attachment included Phase 3 rollout plans for West River, budget outlines, plumbing schematics, and a preferred contractor list. Below was a single line. If you want proof you were betrayed, look closely. My first reaction wasn't curiosity. It was caution. Only a few people could access such detailed documents, likely someone on the project oversight team or legal department. I didn't open it. I downloaded it to an air-gapped device and analyzed the metadata. The creator's name was scrambled, but the line, last modified by R. Sterling, stood out like a confession. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Rebecca wasn't just pushing me out. She was setting a trap, so that if I slipped up and forwarded or used the file, she'd have proof I was still violating intellectual property after leaving. A preemptive strike before I could retaliate. The doorbell rang at nearly 10 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone, but through the peephole I saw a familiar face. Dean, the structural engineer who had worked with me on 5 major projects, including Pine Gate Plaza. Ran opened up. I'm not here to stir anything, he said. He stepped in, bringing with him the chill of November air and a tension he couldn't hide. We sat in the kitchen. He declined a beer, just asked for a glass of water. You've got 5 minutes, Dean whispered. Rebecca's telling people you got fired for leaking design info to Eaton and Blake. She says there are email copies and server logs. I nodded slowly. She's built the narrative. More than that, Dean continued. She says you're the one who sent out the Phase 3 files. Some folks on the West River team heard from her directly that you're trying to reclaim credit by any means necessary, even illegally. I slid my laptop toward him and opened the metadata I had just analyzed. Look. The file she claims I sent, Rebecca edited it. She wants me to open it, circulate it, so she can label me an industrial spy. Dean stared at the screen, then shook his head. I can't believe she's gone this far. From the drawer beneath the desk, I pulled out a thick envelope. Inside were printed copies of every email Rebecca had sent me during the early phase of West River, including one where she wrote, Your floating garden concept is coming together strong. I'll add it to the presentation visuals for the board. Full quote, date stamped, and sourced from verified internal accounts. I'm compiling everything, I said. Original drawings, design logs, testimonials from past clients. I can't fight her with emotion, it has to be facts, the one thing she never owned. Dean sighed. What's your plan? I'll let the client she lied to speak for me. As he stood to leave, Dean hesitated. Do you think she's working with someone inside? I froze. That question was more terrifying than anything I'd considered. If Rebecca wasn't acting alone, the files, emails, and access logs could have been manipulated from higher up. I needed to audit everything again. Originals and backups. No loose ends. Nothing anyone could claim was fabricated. After the door closed, I sat watching streetlights flicker through the window. The anonymous message still sat unread in my inbox. I opened a new browser tab, accessed a secure dark web portal, and uploaded the full metadata package to a private storage system I had encrypted myself. Every file was hashed with an uneditable signature, every timestamp triple verified by sync system clocks. No one likes a whistleblower, but when the whistleblower holds irrefutable proof, the story changes. Rebecca could spin her version with charm, tactics, and influence, but I had something her lies couldn't cover. Raw data. I stayed up all night. Not out of worry, but because I had just uncovered what Rebecca had been trying to erase from the system for the past 3 months. A forgotten email buried deep within the Edgewater Project's internal exchange folder. Back when Rebecca was still just an assistant project director, with no authority to approve any design on her own. Subject line, Central Garden Concept, from Brandon's sketch. Sent from her own address, it included a scanned image of my hand-drawn sketch and the line, "I'd like to include your floating garden idea in next week's presentation. Could you help adjust the block proportions? The inspiration is entirely yours." It was written quickly, a little casually, not for clients, but as internal correspondence. But in this battle, it was indisputable proof she had acknowledged my contribution back when she had no reason to deny it. I took a screenshot, then reopened my full backup archive. Every design was clearly tagged with metadata. Edit times, creator identity, design software used, login devices, no gaps. No forged traces. Alongside were other emails from past collaborators like Joanne Heller from Jersey City's project office, who worked with me on the South Point Pavilion. In one message sent to Cloverfield's design team, Joanne wrote, "Brandon understands tidal wetland soil dynamics better than anyone I've ever worked with. His design saved us from having to demolish the entire Eastern Foundation." I gathered every performance review HR had ever sent me, all marked outstanding, for 4 consecutive quarters. One evaluation, personally signed by Alan Greaves, read, "Brandon's control over budgets and construction timelines is what helped Cloverfield exceed 12% growth during a materials crisis." The same Alan who watched me walk out of the company like I was a liability being written off. I compiled everything into a single data file, case_Rebecca_S_SR_FRD. It had 4 sections. Original designs with timestamps and raw design software data. Internal emails, including Rebecca acknowledging the ideas, were mine. Performance reviews, HR records, and notes from senior leadership. Testimonies from collaborators, client emails, technical partner endorsements. At 5:43 a.m., I sent a full copy to the personal inbox of the intellectual property attorney Joanne had referred me to, Elaine Price, LLP. I didn't go straight to court. I wanted to give the company a chance to make it right. Then I sent a summarized version to 3 places. The chairwoman of Cloverfield's board, Meredith Sloan, who had only appeared twice in my entire career, but once asked me at a company party, "Why don't you ever take credit?" The legal department at Eaton and Blake, with a note, "The design sent by Cloverfield's representative was not created by the person whose name appears on it." The New York City Planning Department, currently reviewing the next phase of the West River project. I didn't make noise, I didn't threaten legal action. I let the data speak. A few hours later, Elaine responded, "I'll reach out to Cloverfield's legal representative to arrange a preliminary discussion. This evidence is more powerful than you realize. Do not circulate it until I signal." Around noon, Dean called. "You just shook the place." His voice was hoarse. "I don't know what you did, but Meredith just sent an email calling for an emergency meeting. Rebecca's not on the invite list." "Good," I said simply. "One more thing," Dean added. "Rumor has it Rebecca's trying to quietly exit Cloverfield. She's working back-channel deals for a neutral reference letter in exchange for silence. Are you going to let her walk?" I looked at the West River concept on my screen. "No," I replied. "I don't want her to disappear quietly. I want her to sit in a room full of people and be forced to hear her own voice when they ask her, 'Why did you have to steal someone else's work to get there?'" The meeting was scheduled for Tuesday morning on the 20th floor, the largest conference room in Cloverfield headquarters. Attendees included the board, legal team, city officials from New York, and 2 senior reps from Eaton and Blake. Rebecca was present too, seated on the right side of the table, spine straight, lips painted red, as if this were just another routine update, not the showdown she never saw coming. I entered the room at exactly 8:59. No one stood to greet me, no one stopped me, maybe because they'd already received Elaine's report the day before. Or maybe because everyone could smell what was in the air. Crisis. Meredith Sloan, the chairwoman, signaled the start. She looked first to Rebecca. We're here to confirm design authorship regarding the West River project. Rebecca, please walk us through the development of the concept and the technical rationale behind it. Rebecca opened her laptop, typed a few commands, and projected the master blueprint. Her tone was still composed. The design is based on a multi-tiered integration model, aiming to build a sustainable ecosystem around the shoreline community. Dedication specifically, interrupted the city official. We need clarification on how you plan to handle sublayer drainage during tidal storms. Your file references localized filtration with biocell integration, but the technical documentation lacks detailed execution. Can you explain? Rebecca hesitated, her eyes blinked fast, then she scrolled through a few more slides. That part was supported by the engineering team. I wasn't directly involved in the simulation. The room thickened with silence. One of the Eaton and Blake reps, Jen Hollister, leaned forward. Then what about the structural layering beneath the floating garden modules? Who drafted that schematic first? Rebecca turned toward Meredith, about to answer, until I stood. I can, I said. Meredith didn't speak, but her hand dropped lightly, giving permission. I plugged my hard drive into the projector port and opened my original blueprint, the only version with metadata verifying the creation time, software used, and the unique configuration of my work device. I walked them through how I sketched the concept based on the specific terrain of the West Side Harbor, the wastewater treatment system layered through aquatic vegetation, the root spread foundation structure, inspired by natural twisted root systems. Lastly, I displayed an email Rebecca sent to me 4 months earlier that read, "Can you help clarify the lighting and drainage solution? Your biocell idea is brilliant." No one said a word. I looked at her. You took the original design, erased my name, added borderlines, and signed your own. You forged emails, manipulated access logs, and pushed me out of the company with an unproven accusation. Dean, seated at the far end, spoke up. I confirm. I saw that sketch printed by Brandon weeks before it ever appeared in Rebecca's plan. Meredith turned to the IT team. A middle-aged technician responded. We verified Brandon's device activity during his stay in Vermont. There was also a suspicious login from Rebecca's account into his device using an internal VPN that spoofed a Cloverfield IP. Rebecca shot to her feet. This is fabricated. Everyone knows metadata can be altered. Jen Hollister from Eaton and Blake interrupted firmly. We submitted the design files to an independent technical verification team before this meeting. The results show Rebecca's presentation is a near-exact replica of Brandon's original design, only the headings and fonts were changed. The room fell into silence. Rebecca gasped, her eyes darting as if searching for an exit. No one spoke in her defense. Not one person. Meredith enunciated each word. Rebecca Sterling, I ask you to leave this meeting immediately. The door closed behind her. No one walked her out. I didn't sit down right away. Looking around the room, I spoke clearly. I didn't come here to get my position back. I came to reclaim the truth. Reputations can be built with words, but they collapse the moment truth speaks. No one objected. That silence was the loudest applause I'd received in 20 years in this field. Rebecca was escorted out of Cloverfield headquarters quietly. No argument, no explanation. Her keycard was revoked at the ground floor security desk, and her personnel file was locked from the internal system just hours after the meeting. Within a day, internal channels began to leak news. The creative director was dismissed for serious ethical misconduct. But what really stirred everyone wasn't the stolen design. It was the flood of follow-up accusations. Emily, a former intern, posted a short message on LinkedIn describing how Rebecca had taken her thesis concept and pitched it to the review board as her own. Then came Jerome, a structural engineer, who stated he'd submitted 2 engineering solutions directly to Rebecca, yet when the files reached senior management, his name had vanished. By that evening, at least 7 former Cloverfield employees had sent internal emails confirming that Rebecca had manipulated approval workflows to hoard all the credit for herself. A system designed to honor creativity had been silently corrupted until someone finally refused to stay silent. The next day, I received a message from Meredith, not to discuss lawsuits or apologies, but a formal offer. Return to Cloverfield as creative director and take the lead on the West River project. I need one thing clear, I said during a private meeting with Meredith and the company's attorney. I'm not coming back if the system still allows this to happen again. Meredith nodded. We're overhauling the entire creative oversight process. From now on, every project will have real-time authorship verification, creator tags embedded from the very first sketch. Every revision will be transparently logged. No more name swaps, no more deletions. I looked her in the eyes, and I will be the one supervising that system. Exactly. The following month was intense, but inspiring. I returned to my old office, but not to a lonely corner desk with a cactus and a hidden hard drive. This time, I was in the central creative room, where every new design was processed through an open storage system. No more anonymous slides. No more restructured presentations. On the fourth day back, I sent an email to the entire design staff with a single line. Every idea has a soul, every soul has a name, and starting today, that name will be honored. The message received nearly 70 replies that afternoon, mostly from young designers who had once believed they had to stay silent to survive in a world ruled by reputation and office politics. The West River project was relaunched in collaboration with the city planning department. I presented the full concept officially and publicly before the architectural press in New York. The first article on Archaea Daily called me the architect who returned from the shadows. Design Review described the confrontation at Cloverfield as a turning point that redefined individual accountability in the design industry. I declined all interview requests. I didn't need titles. I needed those who'd lost their voices to be heard again. In my new office, I installed a nameplate listing every member involved in West River, from MEP engineers to the modeling team. No one was left out. No more fake names replacing real people. Rebecca now existed only as a footnote in the internal transition records. No one spoke of her with anger anymore because silence had been replaced by policy. I still kept that old hard drive in my desk drawer, not for protection, but as a reminder. In architecture, justice is not an event, it's a system. And if no one guards that system, others will rewrite history with someone else's hand. Now I hold the pen, and it will never again be used to erase anyone's name. Brandon's story is a powerful wake-up call in the creative industry. True talent can be stolen, but the truth can never stay buried forever. In a world where reputations are sometimes built on words instead of work, Brandon proved that transparency, evidence, and resolve can overturn even the most entrenched injustice. He didn't just reclaim his honor, he paved the way for an entire generation of designers to be properly protected in the work they create. What's your take on how Brandon reclaimed his integrity and confronted injustice? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful, real-life stories about family, trust, and truth.